Hello, everyone. This is your OMR psychiatrist, Dr. Anusha. Welcome to my YouTube channel. The latest series on Netflix, Adolescence, has got people's attention, and people talk about the impact of digital age on adolescence and the parenting in the digital age. Imagine this 13-year-old boy, Jamie Miller, is arrested for a horrific crime, the murder of his classmate. As the investigation unfolds, it reveals a chilling reality. Jimmy Miller's actions were shaped by the toxic ideas which he consumed online, like the ideas of masculinity, incel culture, and the distorted social dynamics. Netflix gripping mini-series, Adolescence, not only just tell us a story, it holds up a mirror to the dangers lurking in our digital lives. So you can see how screens they not only connect, but also they can isolate, distort, and even destroy. So before we explore today's topic on screen addiction, let us dwell into how these seemingly harmless devices can shape the identity, fuel insecurity, and lead to devastating consequences.
All present here. The focus of today is evidence-based updates on screen and gaming addiction in children and adolescents. I would like to introduce myself as a psychiatrist and the mother of a tech team. To speak frankly, I'm neither a technophobe nor an alarmist. And disclaimer, I treat people with screen addiction. To make things lucid, I have organized into the following heads: the introduction, the communication and technology, and what is screen time and addiction, and a word about gaming disorder, and evidence-based updates on screen addiction and gaming disorder. So the mental health issues have assumed ginormous proportion in the recent decade, and this is particularly pronounced in children and adolescents. Why so? It's because of the constant socio-cultural evolution that's nothing but the modern civilization, that is a rapid westernization which happens in India, and the technological complexity and the rapidly changing social values. There is a shift from communicable to non-communicable diseases like lung diseases, cancer, and mental disorders, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases. And the most important thing out of this is the technology in and out of the bedroom. So there is a rapid integration of social media into the lives of adolescents, which has brought a complex mix of benefits and challenges, especially in the realm of mental health, online safety, and digital literacy. So in the post-pandemic or the post-COVID era, this shift has brought in changes in the society, economy, and human behavior, where the adoption of social media has surged, and where, especially in schools, there is remote learning has enhanced digital interfaces in classrooms. This is the most visible and the immediate change brought about by the pandemic, where the technology is being integrated into the classroom, where a recent report reads that it's rewiring the classroom. So we are entering into a new epidemic that's nothing but screen addiction we are not ready for. So what is the screen time and screen addiction? So now understanding screen and behavior, that's the amount of time spent using digital screen technology is screen time, which has become a part of the fabric of everyday life. So we are constantly plugged in. It's easy to overlook how much time we spend online or on the screen, whether it's endlessly scrolling the social media, auto playing the next episode, And many of us are trapped in a cycle of digital overload where this constant exposure to screens, it not only drains our time, it impacts our mental health, it impacts our productivity and the real life connections. But the whole notion of internet or the screen addiction is very controversial within the mental health field. This begs the question, are we over pathologizing everyday life? So, media is everywhere. So, we have television, the computer, the laptop, the smartphone, the iPad, the tablet. It's a growing phenomenon worldwide, and all compete for children's attention. And this rapid emerging technology has affected the most technologically advanced segments of the society. That is the first generation who grew up surrounded by the internet or the electronic gadgets, that is the adolescents. So, what are the types of screen activities? We use it for productivity, that is for emailing, for research purpose, learning, assignments, etc., and for random surfing, and for shopping, and games, or consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, and social networking, and texting, and videos, watching videos on YouTube, Netflix, and all other apps. Now, these are the types of screen behavior, like we have a doer, a geek, or it could be a lazy nurturer, a luddite, athlete, visionary, a ranter, inspirer, or a lurker. So all these are fluid and they are being susceptible to change. So what is this nature and online social behavior? Now, first we use it for surveillance, surfing, and browsing, and for social affiliation, that is social interaction, communication, social connection, involvement, and social affiliation, social capital, and stronger and weaker ties, and for self orientation, self presentation, identity management, self orientation, and reciprocation, that is reciprocity, and social boldness. You express your views, the new medium. So we are at the brink of an infosync. So look at this picture. The first wave, the agricultural era, which took nearly 10,000 years, and the second wave, the industrial era, which took nearly 300 years, and the third wave, the information age, which took 100 years, and now the fourth wave, the beginning of the 21st century, it's a digital, complete digitalization of the society. So we are at the brink of infosync. That is, our brains evolved this fine-tuned balance over millions of years in which pleasures were scarce and dangers were present, ever present. The problem today, that is the 21st century, is that we no longer live in that world. Instead, we live in a world of overwhelming abundance. So, in addition to addictive substances, the whole new class of electronic addictions that didn't exist until about 20 years ago. So you can see this slide showing the means of communication where in the prehistoric age, the smoke signals were used and the pigeon post. And later in the 5th century, there came the printing press, and then came the wired era. Then subsequently, the rise of the wireless era. Then comes the wireless era where the mobile phone got introduced, and in the early 2000, the Skype came in, and then there was a rapid proliferation of the social media platforms on mobile devices in the recent decade. And now there is a conceptual communication, the rise of intelligent phone call. So now the kids, they are growing in a world that is intertwined with technology, which is going to shape their behavior, emotion, and their sense of identity. So the digital environment where you have all the 5 sensory modalities, they play a crucial role in how individuals interact with the world. So the impact of screens on the sensory perception, there is a it could be a auditory visual or it could be a tactile. There's an overstimulation, and then they can engage multiple senses simultaneously, leading to a sensory overload. So this, especially in kids and adolescents, there is the digital interactions differ markedly in comparison with the real life sensory interactions. where the screens can provide simulated stimuli. They often lack the depth and richness of a real life interactions, and this disparity can lead to a preference for digital engagement over in-person contact, exacerbating the disruptions in the sensory processing. So the internet culture isn't online anymore. So this online culture shapes how kids they think, talk, and act, and how they see the world through the sensory modalities of vision, hearing, auditory, and the touch. So it be the primary interaction or the supplementary interactions or the indirect interactions in the internet era. At the same time, now what happens to the growing brain? There are different time frames in the formation of the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex, especially in adolescence, where the prefrontal cortex, there is a prolonged development of the prefrontal cortex till 25 years, but the limbic system is mature by now. So there is a weaker control. The prefrontal, the control from the frontal lobe is weak. So there is a limbic system, it's not having a proper inhibition from the higher centers, so there's a heightened emotional sensitivity. That is, the person has got a increased sensitivity to acceptance as well as to rejection, especially during the adolescent period. And this adolescent period is a age when they are prone to high risk behavior, as well as they have a heightened need for affiliation and social approval. So in this digital era where we are digitally connected, we could say the smartphone is a new external organ. So without that, we are not. We used to have our smartphone, and the communication, especially, we can't keep up with the internet codes. So online, the young people are communicating in ways that most adults completely misunderstand. So what looks innocent can potentially have a different meaning. So, unlike the previous generation, this generation has got a constant stream of information, trends, pure validation from an early age. So, now the screen and data are the new oil, cigarette, and the heroin. So, digital revolution has reshaped virtually every aspect of our lives. So globally, the social media screen time and game console screen time are on the rise. So we are entering into a silent epidemic that's technology addiction in the post-pandemic era. But how can we conceptualize addiction without pathologizing behaviors where technology is ingrained in the contemporary society? So, or for a behavior to be a pathological, there has to be a repeated behavior leading to significant harm or distress. The behavior is not reduced by the person, or it is persistent over a significant period of time, and the harm and the distress is of a functionally impairing nature. So always making it as a risk of making a disorder out of a normative behavior or passion demands extra caution because it is likely to affect and stigmatize individuals outside the disordered population for whom the behavior might bring many benefits. So this is the online and the offline mode where the digital experience defines due to the convergence of the online algorithms, their influence on the society have become stronger and more noticeable. So which dimension is more important now? The present moment of the first kiss after marriage or the photo of the first kiss after marriage? So now going on to the statistics of screen. So there's a time spent by Indian kids per day before screen. This was a article which was highlighted in Jan 2019. And now recently the average screen time of Indian children in the previous years were 3 to 6 hours per day, and 15% of the Indian parents have told that more than 6 hours per day has been used by their children. And in 2024, 95% of the Indian teens have an access to cell phone, and 90% of the rural children they own, and 78% of teens check phones regularly. So this is the alarming average screen time statistics in 2024. And this picture shows a breakdown of the proportion of children who use certain devices according to the latest research. So the popularity of social media, 3.2 billion people, that is 40% of the world's population, use online social media. Average 2 hours every day, sharing, liking, tweeting, and updating. And 75% of teens have at least one profile on social media. And 71% of teens say they use more than one site. And they usually prefer the YouTube, Instagram, and texting apps like Snapchat. And there is a decline of use of Facebook among the teens. And in India, the prevalence of internet gaming disorder is 3.5 to 4.25%, whereas the global prevalence of internet gaming disorder is 0.7 to 15.6%. So now we see that two-thirds of young children can operate a computer mouse, and 58% of children aged 2 to 5 know how to play a basic computer game. And more small children can open a small web browser, 25%, than they swim unaided. Twice as many kids aged 2 to 5 can play with a smartphone application as they tie their shoelaces. More than two-thirds through 2 to 3 years old can play a computer game than ride a bike. So this is a percentage of people, the young people, that is 22% check their phone every minute out of a smartphone owners surveyed, and 51% check their phone a few times per hour out of a smartphone owners surveyed. So the social interactions being shown here, the average time spent, and the average use per day is 2.51 hours per day, and 4.33 hours spent on smartphones and tablets together. So the impact on school life is going to be 67% of the kids are negatively distracted, and 90% challenges increased. And the teenagers' health, 71% have suicidal risk, and 51% have reduced sleep, and 89% of the parents blame themselves and caregivers for the responsibility of a child's phone use. And there is a depression risk of 27% among the 8th graders who are heavy users or problematic users of social media. So the myths of problematic internet use is that it does not cause any withdrawal, it's rare, and it's not a big problem. It only affects the teens. It's going to be harmless and could function without a screen. So it's the myth being continued, where the content only matters, computer time is better than a television, everything is in moderation, and the digital divide, the rural population being spared, and the early introduction of computer. So the truth being the medium matters, and the interactive screen time is more dysregulating. It's not a universal one, and the disadvantaged children are at highest risk. The computer skills are easy to learn at any age. Where does it lead to? So the advantages of screen exposure are it enhances the problem solving capacity and creativity, and it provides new platforms for play and social interaction, the foundation for media literacy, assimilating new knowledge and skills. But the health issues related to screen exposure being the vision problems, the dry eyes, altered sleep, the lazy eye syndrome, and the text neck syndrome, sedentary lifestyle, which is going to affect your cardiovascular health, and the poor posture, the poor physical health, the textured thumb, the poor digestion, and the lack of critical thinking, loss of concentration, impaired sleep, short attention span, learning impairment, poor imagination skills, poor social skills, narcissism, decreased executive functioning, decreased communication issues, And looking into the online food, everything, there is an increase in unhealthy junk food intake, weight gain, imbalanced food. And there is something called Tetris effect. That's a game transfer phenomena where screen users they begin to see the virtual images, the hear sounds, the waking thoughts and or dreams. So even when they have stopped playing, there's an electronic invasion of the mind where you have involuntary sensations, thoughts, actions, and the reflexes of the screen. It's considered to be a evolutionary neurobiological adaptation takes time, and humans have brains for hunting and gathering. It's not designed for the visual hyperstimulation. So the screen problem it continues from bone to bed. So become screen zombies. So the people with the devices, electronic gadgets in their hands, they're frozen in space as if they had been going somewhere but were taken back by the need to respond to the email or check the updates. And there's a worrying update that is a psychiatric comorbidity with screen addiction. This the statistics shown in the World Journal of Psychiatry in 2016. This is the recent update on 2022. So thousands of scientific papers have been published in an attempt to clarify this new form of dependence, often openly referred to as addiction. So this was published in 2018, the association between screen time and lower psychological well-being among children and adolescents. And these are the recent reviews in 2022, where there is a new term called digital dementia in the internet generation being introduced. And again, there are a lot of review articles, a growing body of literature associating psychological effects of screen time, especially in children and adolescents. And the recent one, which was published in Indian Journal of Psychiatry. It's a cross-sectional comparative study of health concerns associated with screen addiction. And now this was in the month of March, the third week of March, a new research article again from New Delhi, which states that over 3 years of sedentary behavior increases the mental health risk in teenagers. So this brings in a doubt whether the screens are bad or evil. So there's an ongoing debate whether the social media use can be at risk or it can reach a pathological dimension. It is just a tool, a special kind of tool, but it can be an amplifier, depends on how it's used. So there could be a addiction to the media or the addiction to the content, the app, the applications, or it could be attention addiction. So there's a growing evidence comparing the digital media and the narcotic drugs. Now, behavioral addictions, they resemble substance addictions in many domains, like the natural history, the phenomenology, the tolerance, comorbidity, overlapping genetic contributions, the neurobiological mechanisms, and response to treatment. Supporting the DSM-5 task force proposed a new category of substance-related and addictive disorders encompassing both substance use disorders and non-substance use disorders, wherein the gambling disorder is being brought into the substance-related disorders, substance use disorders. And the first official digital media associated diagnosis comes in ICD-11, that is digital or video gaming. It comes under the disorders due to substance use or addictive behaviors. That there is a criteria being impact control over gaming, increasing priority given to gaming, and the continuation or escalation despite occurrence of negative consequences. But internet gaming disorder, it comes into the proposed criteria in DSM-5 under the section 3 for further research. And here the criteria goes as follows: the persistent recurrent use, which results in a clinically significant impairment or distress, where 5 or more of the symptoms are present over the 12-month period. There's preoccupation with the internet games, that is having thoughts of the games played, or it is anticipation of the games again to be played. Withdrawal symptoms, and as we know, tolerance, unsuccessful attempts to control, loss of interest in previous hobbies, continued use despite knowing psychosocial problems, has deceived a family member, therapist regarding the amount of time spent in gaming and to escape or relieve a negative mood. And it has geoparadized or lost a relationship, job, educational, career opportunities. So, effects of gaming on sensory processing, it can significantly disrupt sensory processing. So, desensitized to real world stimuli, as the digital environment often provides a heightened sensory experience, and it affects the daily functioning, making it difficult to engage with real world sensations, leading to challenges in interpersonal relationships and everyday activities. Now, talking about the risk factors for excess gaming, we have gender of male, a poor social skills of few friends, poor emotion regulation, impulsivity, poor social support, learning disability, ADHD, gateway to internet gambling addiction, obsessive compulsive disorder, depression or mood disorder, social anxiety disorder, substance use disorder, narcissistic personality traits, autistic spectrum disorder, and high IQ. Now, recent literatures are coming up where it is being published in IGPM in the month of November 2024, which talks about homicide, suicide, cyber victimization, and cyberbullying in persons with internet gaming disorder, and rules coming up for online gaming regulations in India. And then coming to the other specified disorders due to addictive behaviors, that's pornography use disorder, buying shopping disorder, social network use disorder. The other specific forms of problematic internet use singled out are online gambling, which I already said it has been brought into the substance use disorders, cyberchondria, cyberbullying, and digital hoarding. Now, going on to the next topic, understanding addiction. So these iPads, smartphones, Xboxes are a form of digital drugs or digital heroin, electronic cocaine, virtual drugs. So as we all know, it's a brain reward pathway which is mainly involved in this addiction. So repeated checking for incoming messages, likes, constantly refreshing the news feed results in a cerebral release of dopamine, stimulating the reward nucleus, resulting in the pleasure going in for an addiction. And the unpredictable nature of the digital stimulations, the rewards, the number, the content of notifications received. So now it is similar to that of drug use. There's a repeated overstimulation. It lowers the number of dopamine receptors. The reward impact is reduced. Dosage increased to achieve the original high. And eventually, high doses are required just to get off the withdrawal. So now what does this artificial intelligence or the machine learning does? They collect the user behavior constantly and then identify the factors of engagement. They learn, and provide a unique set of rewards and feedback, and they shape the behavior subconsciously for the profit or data. This is a triumvirate, the trigger action reward, where there's an event, you show it up in any of the online apps, and then you get a reward for that. So, for example, if you post something on the Snapchat, you get a reward in the form of like or something, which is going to put in again uh, which is going to again stimulate the trigger, action, reward, investment cycle. So this is a design of the product that uses vulnerabilities, make people act impulsively. So these mixing the design and vulnerabilities to make people act against better judgment and inaction, forecasting, intermittent variable rewards, fear of missing out, fast versus slow thinking, and stress and altered states. All these lead on to recurring media induced behaviors. There is an abnormal cue reactivity signatures that is similar to other addictive disorders. So now connections between the senses and addiction. So research indicates that heightened sensory experiences can reinforce the addictive behaviors. The brain processes sensory rewards where the screens provide immediate gratification similar to substances. So this connection supports the development of addiction as the senses become conditioned to seek out screen-related stimulation. Now, how social media engages the senses? As I said earlier, the social media platforms are specifically designed to engage users' senses, the visual imagery, the auditory notifications, and the tactile interactions on devices. The multisensory engagement can enhance the addictive nature of social media by creating addictive loops of reward and anticipation. And the fourth is the psychological impact of social media usage. It can be profound. The users often experience social comparison, anxiety, and depression linked to online interactions. The constant pursuit of likes and validation can lead to diminished self esteem. Furthermore, excessive use can lead to feelings of isolation despite being socially connected. This highlighting the paradox of social media. So, what are the brain structure changes due to screen addiction? There are observable changes in brain structure and function, particularly in areas responsible for reward processing, impulse control, and focus. There is a decrease in the gray matter density in the prefrontal, especially in the orbitofrontal cortex, and activation of the sensory motor synchrony with concomitant decrease in the audiovisual synchrony. So there's a voxel-wise meta-analysis by Zhang et al., who has highlighted the common pattern of brain structural changes in chemical and behavioral addictions. So all these have resulted in altering this time-tested human neural hormonal network. So humans are in the fight and flight mode, only which is very brief acute period of emergency. But what does this screen exactly do? It keeps adrenaline and the fight and flight response on perceptual high alert for hours together. So what is the consequence of this? The immune system gets compromised, the inflammatory process, the cortisol and the blood pressure spikes with the behavioral consequences as well. And the screen creates a space-time compression effect and the real world into a neat and a condensed, fast-moving digital screen experience, the real world. There's a sensitivity to stimuli is decreasing. All interactive screen time stresses the central nervous system. It also desynchronizes the body clock, alters the brain chemistry, and raises the stress hormones. So, as we all know, the neurotransmitters involved in addiction, like dopamine and opioids, all these get altered. And the long-term sensory adaptation to screens, the individuals become accustomed to the artificial stimulation, diminishing their response to real-world stimuli, need for increasingly intense screen interactions to achieve the same level of engagement, perpetuating the cycle of addiction. And the neuropsychological studies show a significant violation of the inhibitory control, stop signal task, and there is a alteration of the decision making and working memory. And this is the components model of addiction within a biopsychosocial framework. And this is the most cited theoretical framework, which has got all these important features: the salience, the mood modification, tolerance, withdrawal symptoms, conflict, and relapse. So, as we all know, the salience network is a brain network which includes the anterocingulate to the anterior cingulate cortex, the anterior insular to the anterior cingulate cortex, which helps to focus attention on the important events, helping with the person's reaction time to enable taking action, and also associated with the distractibility and its poor impulse control in addiction. This is a growing importance of social network for an adolescent in his or her interest and values, induce positive change in emotional state. This is a mood modification which is brought about in the behavioral, cognitive, and emotional preoccupation. To start with, there is an impulsive response behavior and followed by a compulsivity and a loss of control, and leading on to what is tolerance. There's need to spend more and more time communicating on social media network or use of social media, including to alleviate the episodes of dysphoria. Additionally, an issue with the use of substance addiction symptoms when studying behavioral addiction is the failure to recognize that what constitutes a problematic symptom in relation to one activity. For example, the substance use, it is not necessarily problematic in a different context. That's video gaming. For example, preoccupation with the video games are still considered harmful in a similar way to preoccupations related to drugs, even though the former is a common everyday activity related to far fewer problematic consequences than the later. And withdrawal or abstinence symptoms. And then comes conflict or impaired role performance. And relapse, rapid return to the previous state. And this is one of the famous model, the IPACE model, which theoretically substantiates the neurobiological mechanism, the psychological and the neurobiological mechanisms for addictive online behaviors. So it's called the IPACE model. So which states that there is an imbalance in the frontostriatal circuit, that is between the limbic and the reward-oriented brain circuits and the prefrontal cortex. Now, what happens? There are the factors like the IPACE I told already, that it has got a interaction of person, IPACE P for person, then A for affect, C for cognition, and E for execution. Now, what is this person factors? Personality traits, the genetics, the early experiences, the factors like impulsivity, low self-esteem, and tendency to seek out novel experiences, they all make a person vulnerable to addictive behavior. Then about affect, it's an emotional state which influence how a person reacts to various situations, like negative emotions like boredom, loneliness, and stress. And this is stimulated use of internet technology as a coping mechanism. And third is the cognition, C for cognition, where the belief and attitude, the expectation regarding the use of technology, the distorted thinking, the believing online interactions are better than the real life interactions, and the execution. How often, in what manner the beliefs, the behavior is performed, as well as any activities in controlling the internet, using internet. So all these person, affect, cognition, execution, all these actually they play a role in this IPACE model, where this is the early stages of the development of addictive behaviors, where the perception of external and internal triggers by the salience network, then comes the affective and cognitive responses to the triggers, then decision to behave in a specific way, resulting in a gratification, and the reward. This is the early stages where there is a specific problematic behavior. And in the later stages, when it goes to the level of specific addictive behaviors, where there is a cue reactivity and craving which comes to into play, resulting in the gratification and compensation, that is to the maintenance of the addictive behaviors. What are the similarities in behavioral addiction and substance use disorders? So while both screen addiction and substance use disorder affect the same neurotransmitter pathways, the same behavioral patterns, and the same genetic prognosticators, and the same medications and therapies help, the underlying neurobiological process may differ. The screen addiction primarily stems from the need for instant gratification and social validation, while the substance addiction often originates from the physiological dependencies. But there are objections to this. What is the digital pharmacia? That is nothing but it's being considered a digital drug of or a virtual drug, or it is something electronic cocaine. Now here it's opposite of substance use disorder. So the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. the real social connection. Whereas in a substance use disorder, you have to stop the drug which is causing the dependence. But wherein in case of screen, we are not going to totally stop the technology. So we are rather using addiction within its substance abuse connotations. The second pertinent objection to the notion of technology addiction is there is a hierarchic evolutionary mechanism. That is, people need to be monitored and the need to monitor, which usually comes from the fact that usually in the primates, the information is for safety, food, power, and offspring. But for humans, it's information, curiosity, critical analysis, neoteny. That's we are becoming a informivore. Where the people claim that there is nothing wrong with the use of technology because it's a normal hierarchic evolutionary mechanism. Our vulnerability is that the information being processed at the orbitofrontal cortex is a human instinct where there's slow thinking, mindful thinking, and it's a natural need to connect. We go into the social media because we need to connect. In contrast to what is the hierarchic evolutionary mechanism, and there's no change in the dopamine also. So there's nothing inherently addictive about screens, but it provides a potentially unhealthy platform for another healthy impulse. So it is very difficult to distinguish between the crave for tech and the crave for connection. So all these claims against the objections against the screen addiction has resulted in there is no official category for all these disorders in the DSM-5 or in the ICD-10. So how the screens are addictive? It's a content factors, the structured hardware to socially connect and communicate, the social factors, the socio-technological accessories, and the generation data kits or the 2K kits, process access availability factors, the ease of access, the instant gratification, anonymity, disinhibition, dissociation, affordability, lack of boundaries, and the reinforcement reward factors, and the variable ration reinforcement schedule, the story without an end. So we are being made, we become so tempted to look into the next series, the episodes in the series, and the instant gratification, the hypnotic trance it provides, and the time distortion it gives. So we do emphasize that the neurobiological risk factors for the problematic social media use as a specific form of internet addiction, which is the narrative review which was published recently, which shows that we have to take into account the cultural risk factors, the psychological risk factors, the social risk factors, and the genetic as well as the biological parts. And how to manage? There is lack of methodological sound treatment studies in this field. It's currently impossible to recommend any evidence-based treatment of internet addiction. So this is an article which is published in the month of Feb 2025 in the Indian Journal of Psychiatry. Is it time for India to set social media age time limit for adolescents? Now, the Indian Academy of Pediatrics has recommended a screen time, especially for kids less than 10 years, for 0 to 2 years, 0 hours, and from 6 to 12 years, it's 2 hours again, and from 13 to 8, it's extremely fluid, but the recommended time is 2, but it depends on several factors, and we need to bring in a holistic approach to identify the best time limit catered to each and every kid. So especially for 0 to 2 years, no screens, and for 6 to 12 years, and from 3 to 5 years, it can be 1 hour, where half an hour can be spent in the morning and half an hour at night in the evenings. Then for 5 to 10 years, 2 hours. And this 2 hours, it has to be always monitored by the parents, because parents, they need to be very much involved in the kids' activities. See, when the television came in, it totally changed the way the time spent by kids. But now, with the digital revolution, with the introduction of smartphones, we need to monitor the kids. And what is the special concern with social media? How does it differ from the television? So we keep watching TV hours together, but even in social media, the same thing happens. But what is the difference between these two both? The social media, the danger is there is we are being targeted. So that's oversharing of private information, internalizing symptoms, aggression, social media bullying, displacement of other activities, and there is more of depression and suicidal behavior. And the recent years have seen a spike in the digital dating abuse, especially among kids, and sexting, the new terms which were being introduced. All these are very, very dangerous to young people, especially the kids and the teens. So, what is the therapy for this? Going for digital detox. It's a conscious, temporary abstination from the digital screen to indulge in other human activities. Now, ways to improve screen use as a family. Screen downtime. So, especially in the treatment of children, the family has to take part, especially the parents. They need to be a role model. The mother and the father's media use is going to influence the use by the kids. So, screen downtime, schedule the unplug time, and you need to unplug at will, eliminate stressful interruptions, balance your life to your own standards. So, the kids they imitate the parents, the elders. So there's something called screen diet. So think and talk about a typical daily screen schedule, the devices and sites, and the type of interactions, identify the hotspot needs, and choose a screen that is worth your time. Healthy media diet similar to needs pyramid. Be effective role models. The parental behavior has a powerful influence on child's behavior. So they need to assess their own relationship with technology, educate each other on healthy limits, and try to use the device for reward instead of punishment because it's more effective. Play, work, read, and surf alongside your child or teen, and always make it fun. Parental monitoring should be active, co-viewing, discussing, playing together, following each other, education and guidance. And forget the spyware. Demand all passwords. You will never know when you may need them. Know your child or teen social media sites and follow them. The recent Netflix series Adolescence shows the dark side of social media impact on kids and adolescents. I hope everyone would have watched that. And be proactive, role model. Now prepare your child or teen for confusing or uncomfortable situations. Sites asking for personal or financial information, cyberbullying or exclusion, adult themed content, and review situations where they should ask for help. Check in regularly or daily if you're concerned. Discuss texting and driving, and treat the behavior similar to drinking and driving, because there are a lot of accidents which happen while you text, walking on the road or while driving. Recipients of text and passengers in vehicle object until phone away or vehicle parked. Parents don't respond to text. Don't text and drive, or else we will take the car away. Offer alternatives. So become involved in your child's non-screen life or green time. For more attractive alternatives, do things your kids like to do, take them places they like to go, make it easy to see, host or visit friends in real life, doing any activity inside or outside without holding phone. And don't just get involved in their lives, let them get involved in yours. Have your kids help you plan the next family vacation. Ask your kids to give you advice. Discuss a problem you're facing and ask how they would solve it. Provide opportunities. Reading a comic, a magazine, book, board games, arts, crafts. Listen to music or play instrument. Dance or play with their toys. Exercise together. Help them learn a sport. Enroll in organized sports. Attend religious or spiritual events, meditation, yoga. Invite them to join your activities. Create a real time living list. 100 things to do without phones. Create protected time. This is very important. Turn off notifications in general and remove social media apps from phone. Lights, noises, or anything that hijacks the attention. Checks for updates from laptop or home computer at the end of the day only. Turn off devices at certain times of the day. Good sleep requires high melatonin, low cortisol, and a high adenosine. Stop using device about an hour before bed. Charge your phone in a different room. Use alarm clock. Don't engage in stimulating device use before bed. Scaling down, you create a smartphone internet-free hours, days during the week. Treat screen time like a dessert. Switch to your basic phone. Address unnecessary messaging. Open attitude without judgment. The topic areas to discuss: the healthy relationship, peer pressure, digital security. If you haven't had the sex talk, your child isn't ready for a smartphone. So it's very, very important because nowadays sexting and cyber sex are very common among the adolescent and teens who get involved, who get trapped in this dangerous platforms. So digital security is a must for kids. Ongoing conversation as opposed to a single lecture. Be proactive rather than protective and reactive. So this is very, very important. So the treatment and intervention strategies addressing this internet and gaming disorders requires a multifaceted approach. We include cognitive behavior therapy to modify behavioral patterns, the educational programs that raise awareness about healthy screen use, and family involvement in the recovery process. It is essential to promote balance and foster healthy relationships with technology. So help your child to cut down, wean alternatives, schedule and other incentives, expect resistance. So children resist. So there has to be a slow, gradual change. So never ever stop it because they will be digitally excluded. So you need to have a slow gradual changes like regression around the weekend and holidays, sneaky or angry behavior. Teach the gamer how to live a balanced life, even though games are readily available. Psychotherapy, individual or family therapy may be helpful. Medication currently being studied. While there is growing evidence that addictions to sex, pornography, social network sites, exercise, work, and buying shopping may be genuine disorders among a minority of individuals, none of these behaviors is likely to be included in formal psychiatric manuals in the near future until there is a further research collecting more high quality data on all research fronts. Example, epidemiological, neurobiological, psychological, and clinical. So, approach to screen addiction first is self corrective. Now, fad illness and self corrective, self realization, put in effort, self help groups, filters, and spy walls. Underlying mental illness has to be addressed. Sometimes the screen is used as a treatment. Now established mental illness. Now identify the stressors, eliminate queuing, correct the confounders, rewire the system with medication if required, and supportive therapies like cognitive behavior therapy, behavior modification therapy. So it's a medium note message. Now we adapt to technology, not the other way around. These quotes. Thank you. Let's unplug.